Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ion Canon podcast, your home for in-depth discussion on the lore for now, the High Republic, and the whole canon of the galaxy far, far away. My name is Matthew, and I'm coming to you from Underworld North Studio in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. As always, I'm joined from across the continent by your friend and mine, Mr. Joel Davis. Joel, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing good. I'm excited. I feel like we have been spending the last few years building to this moment, and we're finally here.
That is true. That is true. I gotta say, they did it. They really did it. In Trials of the Jedi by Charles Soule, the story of the High Republic Publishing Initiative comes to a gripping, heartfelt, and utterly satisfying end. And this week, we are doing a deep dive into the twists and turns of adventure and introspection that is carried throughout this extremely well-paced and engaging final novel. You guys already know what we think of it. To help us do just that, you can see him on the screen. Audio only, folks. You can't see him, but that's okay. Coming to us from the frigid tundra of over there. It's the host of the Star Wars Underworld flagship podcast, Mr. Dominic Jones. Dom, how's it going?
Yeah, audio listeners, you can't see me, but I can see you.
Yes.
Done.
Right over there. Look over there. No, not over there. Over there. Look over there. No.
Especially not if you're driving. You're driving. There we go.
Objects and mirrors may be closer than they appear. That's all I'm saying.
There you go. So quickly get the plugs out of the way and follow us on Blue Sky, primarily at Ion Canon, ioncanon.bisky.social. We're also still on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads, but not very active. So yeah, if you want to see our content, see what we're up to, go check out Blue Sky Ion Canon. Also, again, audio only listeners, welcome. We are on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Whenever we're done this episode, I will throw this up onto Spotify and Apple Podcasts for your listening pleasure. If you prefer to drive or listen later or catch it later, it is on YouTube. It's all in everywhere later, but if you prefer audio only, look up the Ion Canon podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Also, I mentioned the flagship because we are proudly part of the Star Wars Underworld podcast network. And here on the Star Wars Underworld YouTube channel, we've got super chats, we've got YouTube memberships. We're grateful for any financial material support you'd like to provide to the channel and the network. If you chat with us normally, I say this every week, you chat with us normally in the comments. We'll get to your comment as soon as we can. If you super chat us, I will interrupt Dominic. I will interrupt our honored guest to get to your question.
Yeah.
There we go. So please do.
Over-honored guest, I say.
Yes, there we go. Capitalism, greed, all that stuff. Anyway, we will get to that. So yeah, please do chat with us down below in the comments there. Also, the Discord server down below in the description, in the notes. There's a link to our Discord server where we're chatting about Superman, we're chatting about Fantastic Four, we're chatting about San Diego Comic-Con, at least I will be, chatting about a whole bunch of things, chatting about Star Wars, chatting about Trials of the Jedi, a whole bunch of conversations, and of course game nights and movie nights. And Joel, what's been going on in the Discord lately?
Well, last week we had a very fun movie night watching the Netflix Sony animated film K-Pop Demon Hunter. Quite good. Highly recommended. 10 out of 10. This week, we are going to be doing a classic game night. What are we going to play? I don't know. Maybe some Fall Guys, maybe some Fortnite, a little bit of everything. So be on the lookout for that.
There we go. All right. So, yeah, do check that out. Last but not least, gauging the tractor beam. Yes, every Wednesday, right here on the Star Wars Underworld YouTube channel and other places, Facebook and Twitch. Chris Abbott and I break down the comic books that came out that day. There are 3 books that are coming out this Wednesday. High Republic number 8, Adventures number 20 of 20, Ghost Agents number 5 of 5, and ongoing number 3 of who knows how many. Also, I'll probably do a San Diego Comic-Con preview in there, talk about Star Wars comics at San Diego. And what everything else. So there's some 2 good publishing panels that I'm gonna make sure I can hit room 7AB on Friday. So it's gonna be fun. Of course, High Republic Adventures numbers 19 and 20 set after Trials of the Jedi. So again, there are 4. Well, I have yet to read 3 stories of High Republic left. 1920 and then the finale one shot that's coming out on the 30th. So yeah, stay tuned for Tractor Comics Reviews, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific this Wednesday evening. All right, that's enough gabbing. Week in Star Wars. Joel, I'll let you take this away for a quick thought on a certain Detective Comics film.
It's a bird. It's a plane. It's Superman. Yes, I saw Superman this week. Oh my god, it's amazing. 10 out of 10. New era of superhero films, I think, has begun. But the one thing I took away from it that's Star Wars related is Gunn for a while has talked about how he's influenced by Star Wars. Not surprised. I think he likes Star Wars. And one thing he talked about how he wants to create a very lived-in DC universe. One where when we jump in, we're jumping in right in the middle. We're not starting at the very beginning. It's not the first superhero. It's like, no, a bunch of stuff has probably happened, and we're jumping right in the middle of it. And oh boy, not to spoil it, but there is a thing at the beginning of the film that is very Star Warsy. That sets it all up and says, "Yep, this universe has been going on for a while, and now the audience is jumping in to this Superman adventure." So yeah, I already see the influence there. Gunn's also talked about how he wants to do more interconnected stuff, like the video games that are canon, maybe books and comics that are canon. He hasn't gotten to that part yet. He's still building his universe, but I can definitely see the Star Wars influence there. And yeah, great Superman movie, and I'm excited for a DC universe that's finally going to be successful. So yes, go recommend it, go see it. Loved it.
Yeah, it's definitely was a quality film. Yeah, it's a great point that it's not an origin story, doesn't give you the origin story. It drops you right in there, just like A New Hope drops you right in there. Dom, you've seen this too. What'd you think of Joel's thought there about it being in Gunn's thought of it dropping right in?
Yeah, I was curious how that was going to work, because classically superhero stories begin with the origin. Krypton explodes, Peter Parker gets bitten by the radioactive spider, Batman's parents get murdered in an alleyway. All of those things are sort of, you expect to see them in the superhero movie, and to just sort of drop you in and say, you guys kind of know this. You guys kind of know this. And trusting your audience, honestly, trusting your audience a little bit to go along with it. It's similar to how the Marvel movies dropped Peter Parker in there. Like we didn't have to see the spider. We didn't have to see Uncle Ben die. We just went right back in there with a semi-fully formed Spider-Man, and then went from there. And that's basically what this movie does with Superman. I think the most Star Warsy element is I think James Gunn did a fun sort of inversion of Chewbacca with Crypto, and having him kind of be, Clark's, his assistant, but also far more chaotic and tinier than Chewie. And I kind of adored that. Crypto was my favorite part of the movie, and the fact that he's going to be in the Supergirl movie next year, I'm like, just put Crypto in all DC movies. Put him in Clayface. Like, just put him out there and have him be part of this in every possible way. So yeah, I adored the movie as well. I love the Superman story. I watched all 10 seasons of Smallville, and this felt very much like it felt in sync with that. It felt like a spiritual continuation of that in a good way.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Yeah, well, first of all, it's gathering my thoughts here that you picked up the dog as your favorite character. That's entirely on brand. There we go. Yeah, that it was really much about elevating in a very cynical time. Here's just a very George Lucas thing of saying, well, you follow the light anyway. You go through life and you struggle through life, and you seek to do and be the best you can be. And that is heroism. That is through connection. I mean, it's almost also very Last Jedi in that way, right? That this is how we win, not by killing what we hate, but by saving what we love. And that has been Superman, but not entirely. Joel, I know you posted in the Discord something from like a Twitter thread about mapping onto different presidential administrations. I need to revisit that, because that kind of seems similar to my Star Trek theory about that. And what kinds of stories, basically what I'm getting at is what kinds of stories do we need to hear in our time? And James Gunn hit the nail on the head, right? It's just that exact sort of, not Pollyanna optimism, but genuine hope through struggle and hope through the struggle of life, and that's to maintain integrity and courage and moral courage of being a good person, generous, kind person. Yeah, that's what we need to hear. So yeah, something George Lucas always preached, something Ryan Johnson's always preached, Dave Filoni, yes, I'm sure JJ Abrams has too, but yeah, it's definitely a meaningful story in our time. So yes, I watched a Detective Comics film and I liked it. It's fine. The world is going to end. So yeah, but yeah, Joel, I think that doesn't, Dom, unless you have any more thoughts to add there.
I'll just say I liked it so much. I put a hold on some Superman comics from the library. So
Ooh, nice.
I do have a few here. Anyway,
Get All-Star Superman. That's really
that's the one that I put a hold on. That's the one I
good.
put a hold on. Yeah.
Anything Grant Morrison. Anything more. Good.
but yeah, I think that's good for this being Star Wars. I think we can jump right into our main discussion. We have a bit of a time crunch, so let's dive right in.
Yes, we're here, everybody. We're here. The end of the beginning of the High Republic. It's been what, 4 to 5 years. I know there's still some comics going on, and there's sort of an epilogue, and I'm sure they're gonna be great. But yeah, this is it. The grand finale. Not since the end of the New Jedi Order books back in the 2005, yeah, around the time of Revenge of the Sith, has a Star Wars ended its big ongoing publishing initiative. High Republic actually bigger than New Jedi Order at this point. So yeah, let's just get into it. Let's talk about it. Let's see. I'm gonna start with Dominic. I'm just gonna go to you. What you think of the book? Just basic overall thoughts on the book, and both the book and the end of the High Republic.
I loved it. I really, really did. My pre-order came in a couple of days early, so I started reading it, 2-3 days before the book actually came out. So I think I actually finished it the day it came out,
Wow.
which makes it sound like I read it all in one day, even though I didn't. It was a really satisfying conclusion. They found a way to make it feel like a full ending of the story of, I guess, not all facets of the story, because there are a few loose ends for the comics to wrap up and a few loose ends for future stories to wrap up, or to continue, I guess would probably be a better way to phrase that. But of the event that was the High Republic, of the event that was this Nile crisis, this book wraps it up, and it wraps it up in a way that's satisfying, in a way that's uplifting, but also bittersweet. And I think it was just a good book. I think that's something the High Republic did really, really well. Sometimes with Star Wars books, I'm reading them and I'm going, okay, this is like cool because it's Star Wars, and it's cool because it's like it's showing us something that the movies didn't have time to see. But sometimes you're not like loving it on like just like a literary level. But with the High Republic, there were a few of the books. I think the Rising Storm in Phase 1, almost everything in Phase 2, and most of the books in Phase 3, including this one, really reading them and just going, wow, this is like a page turner. Like, I need to know what happens next. I'm really engaged. And when you're reading it before bed, you reach that point where you're like, oh crap, I either have to choose between reading another chapter or being tired tomorrow. And inevitably chose being tired tomorrow.
Yeah, sleep for the week. Sleep
Exactly.
for the week.
So I really, really enjoyed it, and looking forward to getting into more of the specifics in a minute.
Yeah, I'll give my thoughts. I really liked it. I'm almost surprised how much I really liked it, because I was not a big fan of Live the Jedi. I got confused reading that book when it first came out on Audible. By the way, I did this on Audible too. But no, either Charles Soule really improved as a novel author, or this book was just better structured, because like I was pretty engaged through most of it. I was glad I read the young adult books. I was like, okay, I'm glad I read that. I'm glad I was keeping up with both the young adult novel and the adult novels when reading this, because I could tell, like, okay, there's definitely some plot points here. If I did not read the young adult novels, I'd be more lost. There's definitely some stuff I think from the comics, because I wasn't keeping up with the comics, where it's like, I don't know who this character really is. So I could tell. But no, I was very much engaged. I followed it pretty easily. I think it helps that this book isn't very jumpy by the end. It's pretty consolidated in one spot by
Mhm.
the end, where sometimes they get a little too jumped around. So it's like I'm able to follow what's going on. And yeah, I definitely understand why they're calling this the end of the beginning and not the beginning of the end, or just the end. I completely understand now that vocabulary that the author's been using to describe this phase and this book. So yeah, I quite loved it. Quite satisfied with this as the ending of the High Republic initiative for now. And excited to talk about certain characters' fates.
Mhm.
So Matthew, what were
Yeah.
yours? Oh, I'm gonna add a couple points to the question. What were your favorite? How did you feel about the book overall? And did this book change or influence your overall assessment of of what story the High Republic initiative was trying to tell?
I mean, you mentioned end of the beginning, and we'll get to that at the end of this podcast. But also to say, yeah, I mean that really setting up the next 200 years of the timeline. In in the kind of the grand sweep, in the broad strokes. We'll get to those at the end. But in terms of what it means for who the Jedi are and what they care about and how they go about their business, and and that it's more complicated. It's not as we've gone back and forth with George Lucas and the Jedi and the prequels, right? It's not as clear cut, but yeah, no, I mean, it confirmed a lot of what I had thought about that. To be honest, mainly the big question it answered is, can they finish this convincingly? Can they actually pull this off? Because as great storytellers as they are, as Team Luminous are, and experienced there are, it's hard for anybody to finish a story. So to finish a story this massive, this sprawling, with this many characters and moving parts, to actually do that, it's such a profound achievement that Charles really tied it all together in ways that carried forward all these character stories. It definitely relied, just like we were talking about Superman, it relied on us to know who these characters were already and what these connections were already. But right, like it wouldn't make sense for this to be your first Star Wars novel for anybody. But
I love to meet the
that's
person
fine.
who it is.
Well, yeah, but that's fine. That's the premise of this book, is that it's the finale. And going in, it had a lot of story to tell still. Going to Planet X, going to dealing with the Nameless and all that. So the way it did it so convincingly and so I mean, well paced and well organized. You brought up Trials of the Jedi, and the thing about Trials of the Jedi is,
mean Light of the Jedi?
or sorry, Light of the Jedi, yeah. Is Light of the Jedi is, a lot of it is this grand history story being told in a novel form. And that's where some of the things that had to get worked out later on through the initiative is to say, let's not necessarily do that. Trials of the Jedi, it really, like Charles was talking about, it really boils it down to these few characters and these few moments in these specific places. And thankfully with Star Wars, and we'll get into that too, you can do that because there's this thing called the Force. and there's really effective ways of Charles used to show the impact of that across the galaxy. So yeah, I'm still pretty astounded. I only finished reading it on Friday, so but I'm still pretty astounded that actually did it. Here's the thing: it didn't feel that big or momentous or monumental, and that's okay because it was very much a character-driven story. The characters happen to be some of the most important, just like in the films, right? Just the most very consequential characters, like Marky and Ro, for example. So yeah, really satisfied. Kind of almost to say, like I've read Mask of Fear this year. I've read Tears of the Nameless this year. I read Charles the Jedi this year. It's 3 of my top 10, maybe. I mean, that's recency and bias, but yeah. So I'm here for it. I can't recommend it to people who want to just pick up a Star Wars novel, but I recommend the whole High Republic initiative to people who really want to dive deep, knowing now that they finish it in such a convincing and satisfying way.
Certainly a commitment, I'll say that.
That's true.
And that's if you just want to do the books. Imagine getting all
True.
the comics. So just I forgot to mention this. I did this on Audible again, and Mark Thompson gives really great performances. His Martheon Row is on point. This book. There's a lot of great moments in the audio where it's like, ooh, yeah, he's really hamming it up, and I'm loving it. I wish you guys could have listened to the audiobook so you could experience some of those moments in his Martheon voice.
Having heard him do the Markion voice in some of the audio dramas, like when I first heard that as the Markion voice back in Tempest Runner, I was like, ooh, I don't know if I like that, but it grew on me. And by the time that I'm reading this book, I'm hearing those lines in my head in that like creepy way that he talks. Lorna, let me tell you. All that. So I really yeah, he's great.
Oh yeah, I love it. I can like the Martheon voice, very creepy and intense. It's it kind of got that intensity too. I love it. It's very fun. But yeah, good stuff all around. Where do we start with a book like this, right? I mean, let's start at the beginning and then we can move around. What you guys, Dominic, I'll throw it to you. What do you think of the family interludes between each sort of phase? What do you think of that family just trying to survive the blight?
I liked it. I liked having that element to sort of remind us of the stakes, because the characters are dealing with this really sort of like hoity-toity, like big picture, like we gotta do this for balance of the force, to restore democracy, to save the republic, save the Jedi, save the force, all of this stuff. And the movies do that. That's sort of their approach to things, and very rarely do you stop and go, what is the impact on the everyday person of these events, and why is it so important that you save the rebellion, the Jedi, all of this stuff? Why is that so important? Why does that matter to anybody who isn't part of these cults or religions or whatever we call them? Why does that matter to us? And so these sequences remind us of that. And I think it's something the movies could stand to do a little bit more of. The shows could stand to do a little bit more of. I think Andor does a really, really good job of that. Skeleton Crew does a really good job of that as well. And Clone Wars and Rebels would hit it at points. But by and large, it's not something Star Wars really does. And so I think there was a creative way to show just how devastating the blight is to everybody, including the people we've never heard of and probably won't hear of again. This family's story as it pertains to the larger galaxy. If they survive this, they probably all go on to live nice, normal lives. Like we're not worried about these guys anymore. But the blight and what Markion was trying to do and what he nearly accomplished, very nearly had devastating impacts on them. So I thought it was a great way to just remind us of the stakes, even as we got caught up in the character drama and the forciness and all of this stuff.
Yeah, I really like the interludes. I almost like for a second like, oh my goodness, am I gonna get more invested in this family than in all of the book? Is my favorite part. Because I really did be like, oh, I hope they're okay. Like, don't kill off the family. They already kind of killed the robot. Robot rights, am I right? Poor robot. Like, oh,
I was worried about the guinea pig.
Me too. I was worried about the guinea pig. Were you thinking you have your little puffer pig down the whole time?
Yeah.
Like,
exactly. I was worried about the puffer pig.
Yeah, me too. I was like, poor little girl's piggy.
So I just want to jump in to say this gets at another purpose of it is it helps us really feel the blight, feel the galactic impact of it. Yes, we feel what's happening with these characters we've tracked with for 4 years, but I mean, here's such a relatable, we're almost a self-insert, right? we're not out on Planet X. We don't have these force powers. We're not part of the Jedi supporters group. But we do know Raiden, Kalina, David, and Shanna. We do know people who have pets, and so it definitely. I mean, it reminds us mentally and gets us in the headspace of this matters. What's happening on this planet matters to these people. It's another way in to feel, we really hope that these Jedi can actually save this family, with the Raiden who is the kind of the typical guy who can figure it out, kind of stereotype. I don't know. Yeah, typical is a good way of putting it. Kalina, who has to go around in a chair, in a wheelchair, because she can't afford surgery, which is a very American thing, I think. And then David and Shanna, these kids who are separated from their parents, and that kind of the catastrophe we might not necessarily be able to relate to so much, but the people we can. And so it was really, really, I mean, they were short, but they were an essential ingredient to the overall recipe that was this novel.
Yeah, I agree. I really like them as well. Next part I want to talk about a little bit is a character who I kind of wish was actually more in the book a little bit more. And if I could change one thing, what would it be? Kind of the situation. I was surprised how little Lena Soule was in the book. She was in it for the beginning, a little bit in the beginning, and kind of obviously in the end. She gives her big speech. We get her perspective of things. But she's not in it that much. I was a little surprised. I guess the High Republic's always been more of a Jedi-centric storyline than a Senate-centric storyline. I mean, sometimes you get some interactions with what's going on, but for the most part, we're focusing on the Jedi. And Lena Soule comes in every now and then. But I did like her moments when we had them. I kind of like how she's kind of trying to keep it all together and trying to hold it together as best she can. And it's one little misstep and the whole thing could come crashing down. I kind of like how we get a little bit of perspective of how this is so far still been somewhat of a regional problem and not a full-on galactic problem, but it could be. Marcion tries to make it and he fails. Spoilers. We're already there. But I would figure to see with some Lena Soule, but what we got of her was really cool. Matthew, I'll toss this one to you. What do you think of the Lena Soule moments in the book?
We got a lot more of her in is it Tears of the Nameless, or is it the it's not the George Mann. Wow. I love High Republic, but I'm like on
the first adult novel.
No, well, we got another part. We got more for in other parts of Phase 3, especially with Markian.
I felt like she was a bigger player, at the beginning of the phase. I have Darkness or whatever the first
I have Darkness, that one. And so that makes sense. I mean, it was more just looking towards, I mean, that's the thing. Again, this very focused, we have this cover. These are the characters of this novel, right? And Markian, of course. But primarily, Charles does a great job of really focusing on the story he's telling in the moment. That's true for Vader. That's true for his indie stuff. I mean, it's a good storyteller. It's good, able to do that well. And so, the one thing with the Ariadu stuff was the one thing I'm like, well, what's the importance of this? But we'll get to Ariadu in a bit. But yeah, I didn't mind that there wasn't as much Lena Soule, because what we got of her, again, we'll get to that at the end, is what we needed to get in terms of the big picture, which is what she represents in this book as the Chancellor. She represents the big picture, and this is a big picture book again, but it's told through these closer character moments. I want to say smaller character moments, again, with the Force. And so if you have the Force, your character moments can be mystical moments, like we see in Rebels and through the saga. And so, yeah, I didn't mind that with Lena Soule. I think it'd be interesting to see and be a side story of what she's been up to during this novel. But I mean, Coruscant itself, that's the thing. Oddly enough, Coruscant itself wasn't a major part of this book. It just wasn't. Like the focus was on Ariado in the second act, if you will, and then on Planet X. I mean, throughout. So at least once they get there. So yeah, it was good discipline to not have her too much.
Dominic, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the point of having her sort of on the sidelines for a lot of this is what we get to at the end of the story, which is she has this sort of realization that the Republic is relying too much on the Jedi, and that that could lead to problems. And Lena, so throughout the story, especially if you go back to the beginning, she sort of projects this sort of like image of control. She's in control at all times. She is sort of this face of stability for the Republic. People can trust the Republic because they trust her. They can, the Republic is able to expand and get people to come and join because she is projecting this image of calm, stability, safety, reasonableness. And what Markion does when he gets on the scene is he shatters that, quite literally in some places by, dropping Starlight Beacon from the sky, and figuratively, just in the sense that people don't know if they can necessarily trust the Republic anymore. Like, what's the point of joining up with the Republic if it's not going to provide that stability that she's been offering? So her and throughout phase 3, she's been trying to figure out how to handle this situation, and she rejects Markion's advances, his offers to say, hey, let me help you out here, let's work together, because it would undermine this vision of the Republic, this vision of hope that she has for the galaxy, if she sacrifices her values and goes in league with Markion Ro to save the galaxy. There's an interesting sort of philosophical moral debate you could have just about that decision, but that's what she's going for. And so despite all of this, despite this sort of potential sort of compromise that she's made with herself of like, I'm gonna go down, but if we're gonna go down, I'm gonna go down betting on myself and not sacrificing my morals. Well, it kind of works. It does work out in the end because the Jedi do save the day, but it is still entirely out of her control. So people can believe in the Republic and believe in all that stuff again, but really what they're believing in is the Jedi. And for her, she now is looking at it going, okay, good, yeah, but what if the Jedi decide they don't need us anymore? She starts to have those same thoughts that the senator from the end of the Acolyte has about the Jedi. What happens when one of you snaps? What happens when, maybe the Jedi forget if one of them snaps? We'll have a whole bunch of them snap and just go, you know what? Screw it. Let's take over the galaxy. People clearly have the thought that could happen. That's why Palpatine is able to place that is able to place that in people's minds so easily in Revenge of the Sith. The Jedi have tried to take over. He's able to do that because people think, oh yeah, they could if they wanted to. And so, this whole story, her being kind of sidelined in this book, is all serving that sort of bigger picture, galactic storyline of the Republic going, we need to take a little bit of a step back from all of this. And they take a little bit of a step back until Palpatine goes, all right, now I need you under my thumb completely. And you know what? I'm going to make you generals in my army. Now I can really control you and really put you exactly where I need you when it's time to execute Order 66. But so while it maybe is perhaps maybe a less than totally satisfying conclusion to her story in the books, because you're expecting this character who has been quite active, quite an active participant in the story up until this point, to play an active role in its conclusion, it serves the larger Star Wars narrative, the larger canon, if you will, that she has to kind of be on the sidelines for this, so that the Jedi relationship with the Republic and evolved to where we see it in the Acolyte, and then again to where we see it in Phantom Menace.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, the long betrayal of the Republic is beginning. I always find it interesting that I always feel like at least my view of the prequels is that George takes the side of the Jedi over the Republic. Because there's a lot of books that always say the Republic betrayed the Jedi. So I think that's interesting. I hope we see more of her in Phase More. That's what I'm going to call it, Phase More. We get to the Battle of Ariadu. I think I agree with Matthew a little bit on this one. I mean, I liked the Battle of Ariadu when I was reading it, but I always did feel like it was kind of separate from the main story in a lot of ways. Where like when you in a lot of classic Star Wars, you got your big battle and your personal battle, like Return of the Jedi or Phantom Menace, where you got the Battle of Endor, but there's also the Vader, Palpatine, Luke stuff and the ground stuff. It's kind of all in the same location where it's and it all kind of affects each other. Or the Battle of Scarif, which I think does that a little bit better. But here, you kind of stuff going on Planet X kind of affects Ariadu because Marcion destroys his ship and takes down the storm wall, but that could have happened anyway. Because Marcion's just crazy like that.
Yeah.
But it is kind of a little bit okay, I mean, that's happening over here, but nothing in Ariadu really affects what's going on in Planet X too much. So it's a little what are we doing? I mean, it's cool. But one thing I do like about the Battle of Ariadu is a lot of the implications going on with the Battle of Ariadu as we see the Ariaduans becoming very nasty and xenophobic almost. Talk about let's kill every one of these damn Nile, let's slit their throats, let's choke them. Here I have this quote here from the actual book. Take your revenge for all they have done to us. Show them how foolish they have come to Ariadu. We are warriors. They are the crawling insects. Burn them, kill them, bleed them. Ariadu is our world. Take it back. Make Ariadu great again.
You may fire when ready,
said the Tarkin family. And I think this is very much a sign of that imperial authoritarianism of which Tarkin will be the main driver of for the next 200 something years. It's getting born right here, right now. We're going to start to see it. And I wouldn't be surprised if other planets that have had Nile aggression, one of them being Naboo, just saying, are going to start having a little bit more authoritarian, xenophobic, fascistic thoughts that when certain senators are going to be maybe we need a republic that's willing to kick people's butts a little more aggressively. So yeah, Ariadu, interesting concept. Not quite sure how it completely flows in the regular narrative, but I enjoyed it. I didn't quite know the characters. I don't really understand Porter Engel. I think I always forget who he was. Or was that the other guy? No, somebody with the Val guy.
Yeah, well, the Barash Val. So Barash is his sister.
Okay.
Oh, the Kirkinfla?
He was the Jedi at Battle of Ariadu doing stuff. I don't.
Yeah, that's Porter.
Okay, Porter Engel. Okay, that's right. But yeah, but no, I do think there's some interesting implications. Hopefully that will be digested on later.
Yeah.
But Matthew, what are your thoughts? I think you had.
I mean, to put out those implications. I mean, when DJO in the High Republic Adventures brings in the Tarkins, it says this is going to be. That's where that story is primarily. If you want to know about the Battle of Ariadu, primarily read High Republic Adventures as well as Lydia Kang's Insider Shorts from Phase 3. When a DJ brought them in and said, okay, the Tarkins are going to be the main contact with the Jedi, we already started to see, okay, is this sort of Tarkin and Anakin in Clone Wars, like Wilf and Anakin in Clone Wars, a little bit there, knowing that this is where this was going ultimately. So yeah, I mean, in an all ages comic, they couldn't really do too much, like Severin and even the grandma. I forget her name. Kind of had to be a bit more benevolent because it's an all ages comic, and the focus again was on these younger Jedi. But here they really here Charles really can take it forward and say, yeah, have this. I mean, it's a pep talk going into battle to put that context, but that we've
Very
seen how
aggressive pep talk.
we've seen how aggressive pep talks can get taken literally, right? There we go. So yeah, definitely there. I will say, thinking about my own comment there about how does this fit into this novel. I mean, there's a few things, right? They had to wrap up the story. DJO definitely does a lot in the comic in one little chunk of it, especially with what's the other? Bifrang is the other city. I mean, these are out of city in Bifrang. Lydia King and hers does a whole part of it with the Adrens, keep it up with the Adrens. But then Charles does a bit more of the larger scale and with General Weiss's fleet, right? Like General Weiss doesn't really show up in the comics very much until we see her a bit, but at the end, yeah, when here we see kind of brings it back before. So this was another interesting surprise. Was when it's part of this book set, some of it's set before all this, so before all the comics and the short stories, and it catching us up to the moment where Markian tells Weiss, yeah, go to Ariado, just send everything, knowing he was about to take down the storm wall, so Ariado might be in trouble from Jedi and Republic coming in, which is also, we do see that in the comic, but yeah, it feels bigger in this novel because it's an adult novel and you can do more with it. With the Adrens, it's more of, I mean, the short stories are more adult as well. So yeah, that felt much more of a continuation with those stories. But I mean, but also to say that doesn't focus, that we don't see Joss much at all in those, or at all. We mostly see Pika and we see some other characters. So, yeah, this really fills it out. It fills that part of it. Part of this, I mean, Ariado is Jedha, is the Battle of Jedha. It is kind of that focal point for Phase 3, and then Planet X is this thing beyond it, is a way of putting it. Like the dedication of Starlight and the Val Affair and all that from Phase 1. I will say, I think, it's hard to really quantify this, but if anything, it really helped with the pacing of the novel, putting these in here, because if it didn't have the Ariado stuff, I mean, then it would have, the Planet X stuff would have made it felt too quick, too soon. So it did help, like, extend it out and say make the Planet X bit stuff feel bigger and more important. Just that's our perception of longer does tend to give us that sense. Also, again, continuing to show us what the Nihil are. I mean, if there's the blight with Markian being Markian, but also the blight with this family on this planet, and then General Weiss being so as brutal as she is, and giving Porter that moment, right, of picking up a story that Charles started in Phase 2 with that comic, The Blade. And so, yeah, I feel, here's the way of putting it, I feel why this is in this book more than I think it, if that makes sense.
I'll get to you in a second, Donna, because I want to ask Matthew this question about other little plot points and stuff about the book. You're a big, what's her name? I'm blanking on names. There's a lot of characters, okay? I don't remember them all.
Keith Trennis.
Yeah, you're a big Keith Trennis fan.
Yeah.
Were you surprised she wasn't even barely mentioned in this story? Especially if you're not going to read the comics. For people who are not going to read the comics, it's like, as far as they're concerned, this is the end of the High Republic, which I kind of say this is. I mean, I will acknowledge the comics, of course.
Yeah, it's the finale.
But
this is the series finale, the season finale, series finale. I'm of two minds, because I had thought Keeve was just such an important character at first, but turns out she's important as a signifier of where the Jedi are and where they should be and things like that. A bit more like Lena So, actually, in that way. kind of as a signifier of who the Jedi, and Porter a little bit there. Also to say, that Kevin needs to tell that story, whatever she's up to, whatever Keeve does. I mean, Kevin just has her in his bones and in his story, and so it's good that letting him do it. I'm sure Charles could have, but again, it has to do with the focus that Charles wanted to have on this story. It was incredibly. There might have been a draft that had Keeve in it more, but what would she have done? I don't know.
I was also surprised Vanessa
you know.
wasn't in it as much as.
Yeah, I get that too. But again, there are a reason why it's these 9, right?
Right.
That we'll get into very soon. But there's a reason why it's these 9 because of everything that's got built up, right? Especially with Aslan and Reeth, and of course Avar and Elzar. So,
right.
Yeah.
So Dominic, I'll toss this one to you. What did you think of the Ariadne stuff in the book?
Yeah, I liked that it was there more than I liked it itself. That's kind of an interesting way to put it. A big frustration for me with the High Republic was that the previous 2 phases, there wasn't one specific story that could be the capstone of it. It was always like you got half or 2/3 or 1/3 of a story in the final adult novel, and then you'd have to go to the comics or the YA stuff or to get more of it, to get a more sort of satisfying full picture of the fall of Starlight, the Battle of Dalna, all that sort of stuff. And so I was wondering how they were going to do that in phase 3 to make not just this phase but the whole series feel satisfying. And you did need to have the defeat of the Nile as a military threat in there alongside the defeat of the Nile as sort of an ideological threat. And so the ideological stuff happens on Planet X, the military stuff happens on Iriadu. Porter Engle is a character. There's 2 characters in the High Republic where I always looked at them and went, these are the writer's guys. Like, the writer loves this character far more than I do. And Porter was one of them. The other one was Buckets of Blood. And they both feature very prominently in this book. Now, they both serve a very good purpose in this book, and they both have very memorable moments and memorable chapters in the books. And I think this book, Trials of the Jedi, serves to elevate those characters for me to much closer to what I think they were for their creators. And so by having Porter basically be the guy for the Battle of Iriadu, because that is such an important character to Charles, the storyline is therefore elevated, because it could have been a little bit perfunctory, because all of the characters we really care about in the Battle of Iriadu, by and large, are in the YA comics and the adult comics to a lesser extent. Just because those comics move away from it faster. The YA ones spend a lot more time in the battle. At least it felt that way reading it. I don't know what the actual numbers are, but so if you're not going to adapt the YA comics into novel form, if you're not going to end the YA comics and have those characters have their storyline be wrapped up in this, inserting Porter Engle into this storyline and having him be the vessel through which Charles Soule himself cares about the battle and then gets us to care about the battle, I think really, really, really worked. And it served that purpose that I needed and what I was looking for, which was give me the capstone, give me the finale, the proper ending that shows us, like I said, the defeat of the Nile, both on a military level and a spiritual level. And so in that sense, it all worked really, really well. That said, there's a very clear A storyline and a very clear B storyline. And, sometimes a B storyline can be as good and as engaging as the A storyline. A storyline, like those were the chapters when you got back to, when you realized we were back on Planet X, you're like, yeah, here we go. And then you get to the Iriadu ones, you're like, okay, all right, let's keep going. That's at least how I felt. But I enjoyed what was there, and it finally got me to see the version of Porter Engle that I think other people have seen. And
Nice. So before we get to the 9, let's talk about him. Our favorite is the man, the myth. No, he's not a man. He's not a myth. He's a loser. He's sad. He's sad little boy. Talk about Marcion. Sad loser. Talk about Marcion. We're not gonna talk about his ending just yet. I'm gonna wait, but let's talk about what good chunk of what he wants to do. Oh boy. Marcion Rowe. My goodness. I've always wondered if there would ever be to talk about Superman again. I've always wondered if there would ever be like the Star Wars equivalent of the Joker in Star Wars. I think Marcion comes close. In terms of like that ideology, even to some extent. Palpatine is just like pure evil fun, but it's not really ideologically a nihilist. Marcion is. Oh boy. His plan is like one of the most messed up things ever I've seen in Star Wars. I'm just gonna destroy everything, including myself, and I don't care. And that makes him scary. Because Palpatine, he probably would go destroy everything mode if he felt like he was losing or he was getting petty. 'Cause that's what he does. That's Operation Cinder for you. But he's also a guy terrified of death. As probably most Sith are. He gets it from his daddy place. His master daddy place. Marcion at this moment was not afraid of death. At least that's how I interpreted the book. He was so willing to go all out, destroy it all, and be happy. Like there's a moment, especially Mark Thompson sells it, where he's just kind of sitting on Planet X going, he just like feels like this joy knowing it's all going to die, including himself. And that's it. Like there's like a sickening happiness to it, which is excellently like taken away from him by the Jedi. It's great, but it's like, oh my god, dude, like he's lost it. He's gone nuts. He completely wiped out his own faction, even just because like I don't care anymore. Destroys a storm wall, which a friend of ours called that he would destroy the storm wall because he felt unsatisfied. And my god, Marcion Rowe. I said this on Blue Sky. Marcion Rowe, probably now going to be one of the most iconic publishing first villains since Thrawn. At least I hope so. At least for me, he is, because he was always the highlight of the High Republic. He's always been the highlight.
Both have blue skin.
And I do. They both have blue skin. So, but yeah, he was always a highlight. Like, even the High Republic books I didn't like or felt confused by, like when Marcion was on, like, oh no, I had no problem with this guy. I like him. So yeah, my god, he definitely and I'll say, to kind of hint at the ending a little bit, Marcion to me represents sort of the last gasp of this type of enemy that the Jedi are going to face before very clearly hinting what the next big threat the galaxy is going to be facing for the next 200 something years. But yeah, my god, bravo, Marcion. Go out big villain style. Dominic, I'll toss it to you. What do you think of Marcion? Let's try to keep though his ultimate fate till near the end, or we'll get to it if you have to go when you have to go, so we can all talk about that part. But yeah, what do you think about his plan?
So Marcion's trajectory through the High Republic is really interesting because he goes from in the first couple of books early on in Phase 1, you're kind of looking at him and going like, is this guy just like a charlatan? Like, what is this? Like, who is he? Who is this guy? Why is he? Why does he dream such grand dreams of destruction and defeating the Jedi and all that stuff? And then he starts to succeed, and you realize, oh my god, he is a literal tyrant. And as we then proceed into this book, you realize, oh no, he wasn't a charlatan, he wasn't a tyrant, he was just a madman the whole time. And that's what we get. That's what he wants to do. He wants to be, this is where the lust for power ultimately takes you, is you would rather destroy everything in the galaxy, including yourself, if it meant proving you were the most powerful person, versus allowing anybody else to even vaguely challenge that.
Mhm.
Anything else to vaguely challenge that, then you would rather, you would rather everyone die, including yourself, than let that be. And that is a different kind of scary than we've seen in Star Wars stories before. We've seen plenty of scary villains, and Palpatine is kind of the ultimate one, but
Mhm.
this is a different sort of take on that ultimate pursuit of power, and it was really effective and really well played across all three phases, and especially in this book, as we finally sort of realized who this guy was, and what he was ultimately after wasn't power, wasn't fortune, it wasn't glory necessarily. He just wanted to build sort of the ultimate legacy and prove that he was better than everyone else.
No, I agree. Like, I said earlier, I think one of the big differences between, say, Palpatine and Marcion is I don't think Marcion's afraid to die. Palpatine, I think, always will be. He'll never admit it, but I think he will. Like, even if he's like gonna destroy the universe, Palpatine would like make sure he has like one clone body just hidden away somewhere he can jump to because he's too much. I think he's too scared to like kill himself, do unalive himself like that. But no, Marcion would totally do that.
Yeah.
And he did. But Matthew, what are your thoughts on Marcion, this book, and how kind of now he comes
Mhm.
together as the
Yeah.
ultimate? I call him villain protagonist of the High Republic because I see Marcion as the star of the High Republic in a kind of
Interesting.
Darth Vader
It's-
way.
Yeah, I kind of see what you mean, but I mean, he's the guy who makes it all happen. I was like, Palpatine research an alternate universe to hide clone body. There you go.
He would
He
totally.
would. He totally would. It's not a Star Wars thing, but he'd make it a Star Wars thing. Yeah, just to get to building it up to this point. It starts from a really clever, I think, almost like a thought experiment, right? What would pure power be like? What would that be? What would it be? Because that's the thing. Money is based on currency. It's contingent on uh other people accepting that money, accepting that currency, which we see what happens with the imperial credit, for example. Military wealth, well, that other people have armies, but what's stunning, and seems to be what gets built back into all the way into phase 1 with with the nameless, but into phase 3 with the blight, is that Markian can actually do what he's planning to do. That is actually possible. That again brings up what is what's so important about these interludes is we see it happening, right? And we've seen it happening in other novels throughout, that he's actually capable of this. It could actually happen. And so that, I mean, he's an incredibly smart madman. So is Charles Soule, being an incredibly smart madman, of saying this is painting for us this picture of, that Dom, like you're saying, to be the most powerful, for that his choice, not just the most powerful, the only one with power, the only one with power in the sense of the ability to choose life or death.
Yeah, the ultimate power that anyone can have
Mhm.
is the ability to take life, in a sense.
Very
Like that.
Davros.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what Markion shows in this story is that he takes that to the ultimate extreme. To show that you have power over everybody, you have to take everybody's life. And again, it'd rather be, the king of ashes than anything else, and he himself becomes ash in that situation. So
I'm
yeah,
gonna.
it's frightening.
I now
It's a
want.
really good effective villain. Sorry, Joel, take it away.
I now want to ask Charles Soule if he's a classic Doctor Who fan. Because now I'm just thinking of the scene from Genesis of the Daleks. If you know that episode, Dalek, where Doctor's talking to Davros, and like Davros talking about the vial that has like a virus that can kill all life, and Davros like, if I push the tiny flicker of my thumb, will break the glass, and I'll have the power of life and death, and I'll be set up above the gods, and through the Daleks I will have that power. And big, it's a good moment in Doctor Who. Davros also tried to destroy all reality once in New Who, so.
Yeah.
I have to ask Charles if he's a Doctor Who fan. Probably is.
Yeah, I'd imagine.
But no,
Kevin
you're
is.
Yeah, Cavan definitely is.
I have a Doctor Who book written by Kevin.
Nice.
But yeah, no, you're very right, and I think that makes Marcion very scary.
Yeah.
Anybody want to like talk about like where Marcion stands with for you in terms of Star Wars villains? Up there with Vader and good old Chief, our boy Thrawn.
I mean, it's like you said, the pure power, right? Yeah, you're right. Palpatine, he's chained himself by this fear of death. At least this idea of notion of pure power, right? I mean, this is the thing I was going to get into is the contrast and what Planet X really is and what the Nameless really are, which we'll get to very soon. But I mean, it's similar to the Sith in that, I mean, they want mastery over the Force, and they want it to corrupt the Force. And we see Aslan at the end having a little hint of that with a very Sith-like thing he ends up doing. But yeah, I mean, I mean, Markian, in contrary to Palpatine, he has an empire. He can't maintain his empire, so he takes it out. Markian just destroys his own empire. And it isn't really an empire. It's not that big, but he just lets them go jump into the ground, not because they let him down, because he can. So again, it's taking it to the nth degree in terms of, I mean, yeah, I even from phase 1, I thought it was up there. I thought he was up there with just in the sense of where he could go and where just the way it was built in, because Palpatine and Vader, they can be very loud. Thrawn is more stoic and calculating. Markian, it's this quiet rage. It's quiet burning. And that was an interestingly different take on a villain that I mean, like you said with Mark Thompson, there's moments where he isn't very quiet, but those come out as a surprise. And so yeah, I think, yeah, he is up there. We'll see again, we'll see in the next number of decades or whatever, Star Wars fans, who ends up picking up High Republic and reading it and where they rank him. I mean, it's tough to crack into with the live action, but yeah, I definitely. I mean, Charles clearly had all these other characters in mind. We know he had the villains in mind, but then to say, okay, what's this other angle? Where can we push this as far as we can go?
Right. Dom, you want to add anything before I move on to the next topic?
I was just trying to think, like, if I was doing the Mount Rushmore of Star Wars villains, the top 4, would he crack that list? And I think probably not. I don't think you can, Vader, Palpatine have to be up there, obviously, and then you kind of get into like Kylo. I think he's probably got to be up there. Then you're looking like Maul is probably rounding out that. So that's it. But if you were to do sort of Mount Rushmore 2, like the next top 4. There's definitely a case to be made that he could squeak in there, and if not in the top 8, maybe a top 10. But I haven't sat down to really ponder my top 10 Star Wars villains of all time. So maybe that's a topic for another day.
Fair enough. Oh, by the way, so glad. No Sith connection. Thank you. Star Wars gods and Charles.
I was waiting for a Sith connection. I wanted one. I really did. I was waiting for it. I had thought going all the way back to like High Republic launching. I did a Force Fest 2020 panel with Chris Abbott, and we talked about it. And one of my predictions was that the Sith would be involved, and there were a few points like the Sith would just be like, they would just sort of like be there vaguely involved, like they were watching from the sidelines or something, and you get like an epilogue chapter. And there were a few points towards the end of this book where I was like, I'm gonna be proven so friggin' right in a second here, because I'm gonna turn the page and there's gonna be Darth blah 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 on watching from the planet
Darth Plagueis doing his thing.
Ultimately it didn't happen, but I'm okay.
I'm more glad just in terms of like the Sith were manipulating Marcion the whole time and funding the Nile with all their plans.
I'll say this, so I'll spoil this with Aslan with the lightsaber, bleeding lightsaber. That is as much Sith as we got. and that's as much Sith as we need. Yeah, I think it would almost have cheapened Markian, right? Because it wouldn't have been him going to the extent, pushing it all the way. There would be this other thing behind him, and his whole thing is there's nothing behind him. Now he might not have known it, but I don't know. It like the acolyte kind of telegraphed it with having Plagueis there in the corner there. I'm good with.
I don't think Plagueis would have been happy. Like, wait a minute, you can't kill a galaxy. I'm trying to control it here.
Well, that's true too, but also, yeah, when we did get some mentions of some Sith, some ancient Sith, Wreath on his exploring travels, researched some ancient Sith. So, and even in Into the Light, there's the Sith mentioned. So, with the stone, purple stone thing on Kashyyyk. So, yeah, we got a little bit. Like the Sith are there. They're making their presence felt, but no, nothing too explicit. Not why we were disappointed by it, but yeah.
To kind of spoil the ending, the only time I thought there might have been a Sith connection was when I read the part of Marthion's first lawyer dying mysteriously. Like either that or Marthion just killed the guy.
I think that's probably what happened.
But that's probably my guess too. But like, maybe. But no. We'll get to Aslan also in a second because I got some thoughts and see thoughts about that too. But yeah, let's finally get to the nine, the anti-Nazgul. I have it in my notes here. Let's talk about. So we're gonna break it down. Let's get to Aslan, Reese, and Ty first. Yeah, very. I love the dividing of the groups here. Very makes sense. I understood this group more or less the most outside of Avar and Elvar. I don't think I knew who Ty was. I feel like I was mixing something. Probably did not read something.
Yeah, it's from Hieroglyph Adventures, the Dark Horse comics.
Okay, so see, anything from the Dark Horse comics I was a little confused on.
And really, she was only in like her own miniseries.
Yeah.
Like she pops up very infrequently in other stories.
Yeah.
Okay. But thankfully, I did read the two young adult novels, which were very Aslan and Reese centric. So thankfully, I understood what's going on with those two quite a bit. I liked what they were doing. Very much a continuation of their stories from that era or from those books. I really like Reese kind of trying to get Aslan to kind of come to his senses, and Aslan never coming through. Aslan's a fascinating character to me, quite frankly, because as you said, Matthew, he goes full on like dark side and bleeds lightsaber red. Is he a Sith? I don't know. Is he technically? I mean, Star Wars is kind of expanding the idea of like just because you got a red lightsaber doesn't make you.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that he's a Sith. It's just that's the Sithiest thing. He did something quite Sithy.
That's true.
That's all I mean. It's suggestive of it.
That's fair. I mean, they gotta really start defining what a Sith is compared to other people who have red lightsabers. It's getting a little silly. We gotta read some definitions here. But no, I really liked all the stuff going on there. I love how kind of Aslan at least kind of talked out of destroying, kind of just causing more chaos and making things worse for everybody. And again, I think this is one of those things where it's like I'm more interested in what Phase More has to offer. Because okay, Aslan's out there. He's now full on Dark Jedi. I'm gonna call him a Dark Jedi. What's gonna happen? Are the Sith of that time gonna be like, hey, this guy got a red lightsaber, he's taking our trademark. We can't allow that. Got copyrighted. And Reese is gonna go after him. But no, I thought those two were very fascinating and interesting. Dominic, what do you think of the Aslan, Reese, and Ty stuff in this book?
Yeah, I liked it. I liked it a lot. I like that Reese is so trusting. I think that's like a good character trait, but it's also a character trait that somebody can exploit very easily. And I like that he is both proven right and wrong in the book, because Ty doesn't want to trust Aslan at all. She doesn't want anything to do with him. She thinks he shouldn't be on this adventure. He can't possibly help him out. But together, they accomplish something really, really important to the story. And to the, to saving the galaxy when they do manage to work together. And so in that sense, Reith was right to trust Aslan, and Ty was kind of wrong. Then we get to what happens afterwards, and Ty is kind of proven right, and Reith is kind of proven wrong, because Aslan doesn't stick with the Jedi. He goes out there, he bleeds the lightsaber. Clearly, he is not walking away from the dark side, despite being able to be helpful in this scenario. And now he, will go off and be a Sith or figure something else out. It's kind of, Yoda says to Luke, right? Once you start down the dark path, forever will it dominate your destiny. And like, it's kind of true, but kind of not true. Luke proves him wrong, Anakin proves him wrong, all this stuff. But with Aslan, we sort of see where that perception comes from, right? Because Aslan starts down the dark path, does a lot of evil stuff. He does a lot of evil stuff at the beginning of Phase 3 in the whatever the 4-part miniseries was that began Phase 3 of the comics.
Shadows of Starlight.
Yeah, that one. We see how evil he is, how evil he can be, and him and Reith, like they are sort of working together, but they're kind of adversaries. He's trying to turn Reith, Reith's kind of trying to turn him, and even after they accomplish his intended goal, all of the darkness that he embraced and all the evil stuff that he did was to accomplish the goal that he accomplishes in this book. He has the opportunity to turn away from that path, but it is so tempting. It's so tempting. That's that's the thing about the dark side. It's quicker, easier, more seductive. And because it is that tempting, he chooses to continue down the dark path instead of turning back to the light. So, a really sort of, Charles, I think one thing Charles did really, really well in this book was making it be a happy ending where the good guys win and peace and prosperity and justice are restored, but not everybody gets the classic happy ending. And this is an instance with both Reith and Aslan where that is very true, because Aslan goes to the dark side. He doesn't get a redemption arc the way that Vader does. And Reith is left with that lingering question of, did I get played? And the answer is yes. And so that's something, as you say, Joel, for Phase More, that's a real interesting question to explore. I assume for Claudia Gray.
Ooh, I hope so. Yeah. I'd be very curious to see where they go with that story. Maybe that way you could put the Sith, because again, it's like got a red lightsaber Jedi out there. He's not calling himself a Sith, but the Sith, whoever they are at the meet Plagueis and Tenebrous or new guys or gals, are gonna be like, hey, taking our copyright. We got to get our loose ends here. There's gonna be one red lightsaber wielding world dominators in the world right now, buddy. But no, I mean, I've always found Aslan real fascinating in terms of a dark sider. But Matthew, what do you think of this part of the guy Reith and Aslan?
Yeah, Reith and Ty. And Ty bringing up the fact that she's a monster hunter, right? That's her job before connecting back, and she had this sort of reluctant Padawan, or she was reluctant to take on a Padawan. She brings him on. She ends up connecting with Elzar and coming back into the Order, but she still has these instincts of, oh, here's this monster. In a world of monsters, in a world of these nameless and other creatures, and so has this sense that, oh yeah, he's not going to be what Reith hopes he is. Ultimately, I think with Aslan though, it's interesting because he goes back and forth almost. It seems like he definitely goes on this tear. He knows what happens when you kill Nameless, which we will get to hopefully soon. He knows what happens when you kill Nameless, but then he does it anyway. He doesn't care. But then when when Reith and Ty are holding up the Rod of Ages to try and break Markian's spell, Aslan's pulled back a little bit. They say, okay, wait a minute, maybe this motivation to just destroy all the Nameless. Well, especially because the Nameless selves are no longer a threat to him, you know, what do I do? Okay, well, maybe I'll consider this open door just for a second. You know, Reith and Aslan are tethered to each other in this way, right?
Mhm.
Like you guys were mentioning how they're trying to turn each other. Like we'll see with Avar and Elzar, there's sort of yin yang that, you know, Reith is pulling Aslan towards the light, and Aslan's pulling Reith towards the dark. Not in that Reith will follow the dark side, but that this is the thing I was surprised by with this book is that, and it kind of makes sense, but that Reith throughout is being the guy to research, the guy to find out what's happening here, and he's not the one to do this on this planet. That's Avar and Elzar. They're the ones who end up doing that. Reith is distracted from it by Aslan, from helping Avar and Elzar figure out how to take this on. He's got to go. Aslan, you know, now he's the one who found the Rod of Ages in the Echoes of Fear comic by George Mann. Right. But yeah, and it is a really important point of the story, Dom, as you mentioned. Right, it breaks it. That is effectively how to help heal the Nameless. You know, and opens up this final chapter of the story. But yeah, it really does set up this possibility going forward of, you know, Aslan. They're both can both explore the Sith from different perspectives. Again, Reith is the researcher. The dark side, no, but I mean the Sith. I mean, researching, because Reith, you know, and he's developed, I think, developed maturity with researching the dark side, and this kind of a little detachment of it. He's not going to really be tempted by it. Mm-hmm. He does face that in Echoes of Fear. This was a really, Echoes of Fear, the comic, really amazing moment where he finds the Rod of Ages, that Echo Stone, and he's presented with all these future options. And this is the end of spoiling the end of the comic here, but and he said, no, I'm going to choose to live in the present. And that's the thing. He's not tempted by the seduction of staying in the library. He's not tempted by the seduction of the dark side. So, you know, I trust him he can be trusted to go into the Bogan Vault and find out what's going on there. With Reith, he's gone on this journey, like I mentioned, with, you know, in phase 1 at the beginning of Light of the Jedi, he just wants to go hide in the archives here down below in our background. He's afraid of the risk of the real world, and he goes through this journey, and it's almost poetic then that he's not concerning himself with lore and research. I mean, he does that brilliantly in Tears of the Nameless. It's just incredible book, incredible journey that goes on to actually really discover all this stuff. But here he's more concerned with this person in front of him, and it's the two-edged sword of compassion, right? That, like you said, he could be taken advantage of, but if he's being able to be realistic enough about people and about the ebb and flow of history, then he might be able to endure the disappointment. I think he will be able to endure the disappointment of where Aslan ends up going, and still showing compassion. Lastly, to say with Aslan, though, is, I mean, the thing that Reith might discover is that the dark side is giving Aslan what he thinks he needs, right? It gave him the ability to defend himself against the Nameless, to hate the Nameless by defending himself by hating them, by what he thought was the ability to be ruthless and unscrupulous about what actions he take, like you mentioned with Shadows of Starlight, bombing this town, this city, because there are Nameless there. That it gives him sight. He's actually able to see, I think, through the dark side, kind of like with Canon at the end of Rebels, but in the dark side, right? And especially on Planet X. But I think Reith is gonna be able to understand that and tap into that, and so I really I need that now. I need this story in Phase more. I need that, but definitely I was surprised. I would have thought Aslan Reithkin would have gone to what Elzar, Avar, and Elzar end up doing, but glad that they also have their own journey.
It's funny. I did actually think there was going to be this connection with Aslan because when Aslan's hearing the dark side in his head, I thought for a hot second like that Plague is trying to talk to him. So it's going to be like Plague is talking to him in his head. No, it's just the dark side personified. I'm gonna. I know in my notes I have Bury and Ember Tech next, but I'm gonna go to them later. Let's get to Avar Elzar and the Shrikari of Sophros.
The Shrikerai of Sophros.
The Shrikerai. I don't remember how they were pronounced in the book. But my goodness. Oh, Dominic, you're muted.
Isn't it pronounced Shrikerai?
Sure. I don't know. How does Mark Canon Legend Thompson pronounce it?
I don't remember. I didn't remember what it was until you wrote it down. So I forgot what it was even called.
I always liked Shrikerai. I know I've heard Shrikerai too, but I like
I will have
Shrikerai.
to look
Shrikerai
at
sounds more, and this is what's interesting about getting this name and the way it's reused and framed with these beings. It's more mythic. It's more, I don't know. Anyway.
So I always liked Shrikerai as well. That was how I read it. But then it occurred to me that it should be Shrikerai because in the little rhyming scheme, it goes Shrikerai, Karai, they're coming to take you away. Shrikerai, Karai, we're coming to take you away.
Coming to take you away. Eyes the buy. The build the boat. Anyway, fine.
Eyes the buy, the sails are.
Anyway. Shrikerai and Ray Skywalker going to meet them in 200 years. That'd be cool. But no, let's get into this part because my goodness, there is some Force Mortisy world between world stuff going on here. I mean, to be fair, Charles Soule actually does have a bit of a habit of doing this kind of stuff. I mean, he did it with his Vader stuff with like the Force vision at the end. Darth Moment did kind of come back from the dead at the very end of that. Haven't gotten it yet in his Legacy Vader comic. I'm waiting for Kylo to have his weird Force moment. There's a little bit of stuff going on in his mainline Star Wars where Luke does talk to, I think it's Avar. He talks to somebody. Forget who he talks to.
He talks to Elzar.
Talks to
But
Elzar.
like it's an echo of Elzar.
Talks to an echo of Elzar. But yeah, we discover that this planet is like a vergence in the Force, and like it's keeping the Blight from just destroying everything. And the name the Shrikerai are now like are sentient beings who can talk to people and through their minds, I guess, and are keeping the Blight in check. But because a lot of them have died or got killed, became mad, it's everything's out of balance, and Avar and Elzar have to now be the balance of the light and the dark and all that. So, Matthew, I'm going to put it to you because this is your field of expertise here. Well, what'd you make of all this, and what'd you make of Charles' depiction of balance and light and dark and the planet and all this?
Sorry,
great stuff.
I gotta change that. It says Joel. I'm the one with 2 theology degrees. Hold on. Okay, there we go.
I did my theology degree. I did my theology thing last time, so that's why.
There we go. That's why. Okay, now we can't see Dominic very much. I really love this. This was I love that. Bye, Dominic. I'm trying to hide. There you go. I just love that he went there. Like immediately when I read, okay, when they go into the cave and they like Avar doesn't like, it's not they're talking, it's that they put the words into their heads, right? So I guess
telepathy.
It's telepathy, but that's how they can communicate. And they go through this cave and this is what this this is what this planet is. And we knew it was something special when great grandma goes, Marta Rowe goes to this planet, and everything's so elevated and so yeah, more colorful and more animated, and more energy, and she really kind of bulks up there. I mean, and it's kind of where the Nile really become the Nile, effectively. That it's about, I mean, one of these places like Mortis, like the world between worlds, where these weird force, places that are meant to symbolize the unity of the force and the balance of the force, and we call it the cosmic, to nerd out, the cosmic force, the unifying force, right? That in this universe, this fictional universe we have, that there is this energy that sustains all things and gathers all things, and if it's in balance, then it sustains life, and life can grow. And the blight becomes this incredible depiction, almost symbolic but literal at the same time, of what happens when the force is removed. I mean, that's what we get with the Shriekerai when they're starved to death. When they're so starving, they got to go find Jedi to suck the life out, is what happens. That's the blight, and this is of course what Wreath discovers in Tears of the Nameless. That's the blight on a cosmic scale, on a galactic scale. And so, to just the concept that Charles was allowed to go there, Team Luminous was all, we want to do something on the level of stuff that George Lucas and Dave Filoni have done. We want to do this in a publishing initiative. Love it. Blows my mind. Really ties all of everything together. We go from, because when we have this weird solid villains called the Drengir, whatever they're up to, whatever they're about. We have the Nameless, we have the Nile, but then the blight becomes the great cosmic villain, if you will. Like Markian, that's the odd thing. Markian, he needs the blight. So it isn't even pure power in that sense, right? He still needs the blight to do what it does. He's setting it in motion, so that is his source of power. But yeah, I mean, it gets to me thinking of this contrast with what Markian believes is power versus what the Force itself believes is power. That's channeling James Luceno's Darth Plagueis. When Palpatine and Plagueis and Palpatine are monkeying with life, midichlorians, boom, forces, here you go, Anakin Skywalker, right? Effectively, that what the Force believes is power is not the power to take life, but the power to sustain it. And what freedom means, not the power to take life, but the power to sustain it and to sustain the life of others. And so we see that encapsulated. You haven't mentioned Avar and Elzar, but that it's so funny because was Zerata Cordova writes Zerata Cordova writes the Temptation of the Force, the Jedi and Nerve, and that we fit this fun Jedi romance, but it becomes the symbol of what is needed to sustain life, and it's love. And it's not love in the airy-fairy iffy way. It's we're celibate Jedi. We're kind of pushing the boundaries here.
They're not celibate, I promise you that.
No, not anymore. No. We're supposed to be celibate Jedi. What's happening?
Actually, no, George never said they could be. George said it's okay for them to do the thing. George said they're not celibate. They just can't have attachment.
Well, they're attached, is what we'll say there. But and it does become this tragedy of I'll say that this tragedy that's very much on the plane of like Orpheus and Eurydice and these ancient Greek myths and Roman myths of these two lovers, of Romeo and Juliet, right? And the from the myth that comes from what is it? I heard something about like the constellations and the two lovers that are destined to be apart. And now I don't know if this is permanent, that they have to be apart here in balance until there's enough Shriekerai to restore the balance. But it's going to be a while. It's going to be a while. And so that's one influence. like the shriekery of Sophros. It sounds like something C.S. Lewis or J.R.R. Tolkien would come up with, right? It's like, especially C.S. Lewis, because I mean Tolkien didn't. Well, yeah, Tolkien has these weird beasts, but like these mythical, very real. So all that to say, all the fantasy influences of Star Wars really comes to the fore with this. These mythical beings who can, even the name Sophros, this Greek kind of word. Sophia meaning wisdom. There's another thing. Just getting this out, like Sophia meaning wisdom in Greek, and the wisdom of the galaxy, and they're meant to protect and maintain the wisdom of the galaxy. And yeah, this very mythical fantasy, high fantasy concept. Again, in Star Wars, just like the Mortis gods are this mythical high fantasy concept. The world between worlds a little bit. I don't know if it's more sci-fi-ish, but yeah, I love that it's here. Love that it's in this. And love the way, again, with Eivor and Elzar, their character journeys connect with this deeper lore in a convincing way. And that's always the challenge, right? I say this a lot, right? The challenge of making a cool, nerdy story and a good character story. And here's where, and this is why, that's why I love the Space Wizard stuff, right? Where you said it's my wheelhouse. This is where it does both in such a convincing way, in such a moving way. And so happy to have them. I mean, not happy where they end up in this sort of forced purgatory that you mentioned, but I mean, let's see phase more, see them come back together and see what happens there.
Dominic, what are your thoughts on all this?
Just to sort of echo what Matthew was saying, like I like that they were able to go there and have another Mortis World Between Worlds style place that's sort of outside the galaxy, but part of it, that is a heightened Force location that, seemingly what happens there impacts the larger galaxy in big ways, and I like that it's somebody other than Dave Filoni who gets to do that. That's not a shot at Dave. I love what Dave has done, but it sometimes feels like that sort of stuff is restricted to just him. And I think other people can have interesting takes on this, and Charles certainly did. So just sort of on the concept of Planet X, yeah, I really dug it. Are we talking Avar Elzar as well? Is that what we're?
Yeah, we're talking the whole.
Yeah,
plot point.
I went for it.
Again, that's where I go back to. They managed to have a happy ending for the story, but not have it be like everybody gets to live and go back to the galaxy and have their sort of perfect lives. This was kind of the perfect ending for these two, because as we said, they are skirting the rules of the Jedi code. So there isn't really a happy ending for them if they go back to the galaxy. They're either abandoning what they believe and giving up on being Jedi, or they're being forced to break up. So there's not really a good solution for them in the galaxy. And this at least allows them to be together. Now they're together through the Force, but they're apart physically. And so it maintains that sort of bittersweetness. And so I was glad, much in the same way I was glad that not everybody got sort of the perfect happy ending. I was also glad that, the story didn't turn into a bloodbath either. They didn't go full, Game of Thrones and just start killing everybody off. Because there's a version of this story where that's just kind of what happens. One of them dies, and that's how you get sort of a tragic ending to their story. Instead, you get the tragic element, but there is sort of a silver lining to it, that they are always together in a way. And so I really did love that as a conclusion to their story. To leave them stuck essentially on a Mortis-like planet forever and ever.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was great.
Just want to jump in quickly. In Trials of the Jedi, during the Great Disaster, there's someone reading a holo novel of this genre of the Jedi romance. There's this genre that exists, and when I saw the concept for Temptation of the Force, I immediately thought, "Oh, this is Eivor and Elzar." I mean, what that genre is just sort of anti-romance. It's them grappling with the tragedy that they can't be together. And of course, with Temptation of the Force, they do end up together, do the things. And I mean, we don't fully know what the genre is. I'd like to see more of that. That would be fascinating. But I knew once, with Temptation of the Force, I knew, oh yeah, we just might get something like this. And here we get, that their connection is what helps restore the balance. Even as they're physically apart, but them being there for each other, going through this cave and going through this darkness, through this through the heart of the galaxy, really in a mythic way. And it shows that there's a place for that, oddly enough, and that's something that the Jedi, because the Jedi have to forget about this planet, they have to forget about Abraham and Elzar effectively. Yoda and Lena are like, no, we got to cut this off from the galactic memory. And so part of the thing they might have to cut off is, oh, actually this attachment helped them go through. Then they're dealing with it. It is a tragedy in a way, like you said, but it's also I do think it is a bit tragic in that they have to stay apart. But hopefully not for long. Not forever.
It's both. Like Charles gets to have it both ways, where it's romantic and beautiful and lovely, but it's also tragic. Bittersweet is, I think, like the ultimate descriptor for it.
Agreed. So let's get to Bell, Burry, Ember, and Tarek, and we'll talk about Bell and Marthion's battle as well. Don't have much to say about Ember and Tarek. Sorry, I don't. I didn't. That's cool. They got the telepathy thing going. But I didn't have much to say about those guys. But if you guys ever want to talk about them when I ask a question, feel free.
The Sarek and Tarek storyline in the comics kind of lost me a few times, where I could never quite keep up with what exactly was going on between the two of them. And so I knew enough to know that things weren't great, and I liked that it was resolved. And I thought, having one of them come on the adventure so that they could be in constant communication with the other was a good touch, and like it was a good sort of creative way to work around the fact that Planet X is supposed to be completely inaccessible from the rest of the galaxy. So I thought that was cool. I did like getting a chapter from the POV of Ember. I thought that was really fun to get a chapter from the POV of a dog. Like that was
on brand. Brand.
Oh yeah.
Friggin' love that. And as for Burry, if there's a passenger princess in this story, it's kind of Burry. But he's such a fun, warm presence on the page that I can't complain.
Fair. Let's get to the part I liked. Bell and Marthion's battle. My God, it's brutal. It's brutal. It's harsh. I love how it ends with just Marthion just like battered and broken and like such a loser, and like he's like just defeated, destroyed, and mangled. I love how in the end he's like, he's awake, and like Bird like shakes him a little bit. They're like, dope. Like I don't know why, but all of it was like how Marthion. This could probably be more Marthion than the other characters at this point, but this is like, to me, all of what happened to Marthion would be like, all I could think about, like, this is like the weird AU of Return of the Jedi where Palpatine lived and got captured. Imagine just Chewie just holding Palpatine on his back, just like accidentally hitting him in various walls, like ouch. Like,
whoops.
It'd be hilarious. But no, I just love the way it's like Bell like really shows like the power of the Jedi and what it all means. Just Marthion's just completely overtaken. It's great. Dominic, I'll toss it to you. What do you think of Bell and Marthion's final battle, or their battle?
It was awesome. Like I was trying to, like, going into the story, I was thinking like, who's going to get the final showdown with Marchion? Like who could it be? Who does it make sense for? And for whatever reason, it didn't land for me that it was going to be Bell. But as soon as it started happening, I'm like, oh yeah, this makes sense. And I got chills with the vision of Loden coming back, and like that's a character like, we haven't seen in a really long time. He dies in the second novel, and he's captured for most of it, which means he's not in like the comics or the YA or the middle grade stuff. Like he's really not there. The only time we've seen him since then was on the Young Jedi Adventures, right? Like he pops up there, and that's kind of it. And so I was, and honestly, I was a little bit surprised at like my own reaction to it, of being like, wow, this is that character again. Here he is, he's back. And you know, it reminds me of like how much that moment at the end of Rising Storm, how impactful it is when he dies, and the mystery that unleashes about the Shrieker Ray and everything that comes with it. So
True.
I thought that was really, really cool. And the battle, yeah, it was just brutal and awesome, and the sort of thing you'd love to see on screen, but I'll take it on the page too.
Yeah, Matthew, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, Loden is represents for Bell this tragedy of the past that he has to move forward from. Right? He constantly refers back to him, constantly thinks back to him, tempted to have revenge against Markian. Right? That's the thing, is that he could tap into the dark side here. Markian also has Loden's lightsaber, and you know, that visceral sense of, you know, yeah, I could be doing this for that reason, but that would still be being trapped into that tragedy. And so the fact that he is able to handle the situation effectively on his own, yeah, Burry and Tarek and Ember show up at the later on, but the fact that he's able to handle it means, you know, and without brutally killing him, means that, yeah, he has evolved and gone forward, and is able to use the memory and the inspiration of Loden, but not abuse it, if you will. Like, use it as this foundation for all the good that he wants to do in the galaxy. And we've seen that relatively a lot through phase 3, but here really comes full circle and comes to the point. Yeah, so that was good. I mean, you know, we in what was the audio play, Lorna is able to make a mark on Markian. Make a mark on Markian. There we go. And actually like get him, injure him a little bit. And that's the first chink in the armor. And here, you know, it's a signal. Oh yeah, he's vulnerable. He isn't fully in control of his own actions and choices necessarily, which is the odd thing. It's the thing he wants to do most. And yeah, and then he's able to be defeated by relatively younger Jedi. I mean, Bell's a knight at this point, but he's not that old. So that I do, and then do want to comment on Markian's fate here.
Okay, yeah, go for it. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, there's a moment early in the novel where he's on the gaze, and it's basically him and some droids, and that's it. You know, Gira's gone, everyone's gone, and it's the only time he's kind of happy, kind of okay. And then that's how he ends up, is in this prison, just with these droids. You know, it's like, you know, oddly enough, you know, maybe the fact of other sentient beings being there, having free will, having agency, the fact of it means he's not fully in control. Droids almost give him this illusion, because he could switch them off at will. This illusion that he was the only one who mattered, the only powerful person. And so he's consigned to his fate of, this is what you want. It's almost, yeah, you know, talking about like hell and purgatory. You know, it's, you know, kind of, you get stuck with what you want. If what you want is isolation, disconnection, then that's what you'll get. I mean, no, people don't ultimately want that, but if that's the path you've taken, it's the path you'll get. Oddly enough, that he kind of has this bit of a happy ending. That's the wild thing. Like, he's able to say to the droid, "I'm sorry, my friend." It's sweet bitter as opposed to bittersweet, if you know what I mean. Like, it's you almost feel for him a little bit, in that he's just so reduced to nothing that, you know, and he's never going to learn his lesson necessarily. But that, so surprised. I could have sworn Marta would show up. I could have sworn Asgard would show up. Even Markian himself is like, why haven't they shown up? But,
yeah, that's a weird, like,
yeah,
almost feels like it's like a dropped plot point.
Yeah,
because so much was made of that in the phase leading up to this, and for it to not factor into the story like at all, I was really surprised and a little bit put off by that. So it almost makes me wonder, as you said earlier, if there's like another draft of the story that has other characters in it. I kind of wonder if this was something that like they had planned on. They had said this is going to be this is going to factor into the end of his story, and then as the book was being written, Charles and everybody looks at it and goes, this isn't working. And, for the sake of making a good book, they dropped it.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I that's understandable if possible. Yeah, yeah. Let's talk. I want to talk about Martheon's fate. Oh my god, I loved it. What a way to go out in terms of my not going out and just you get a trial and you get sent to jail forever. Um, I remember reading your Substack about this, Dominic. It's right. Star Wars tends to like to kill off its main baddies, and I understand why. I think for the most part, I get why. Like, I can't see a world where Palpatine's alive. I think he kind of needs to be destroyed. He's so demonic. Vader was already kind of dead in light. He was dead inside. Anyway, it's like he wasn't gonna last long. I mean, maybe White Knight Vader if you want to do Infinity, but Kylo's kind of the only one that's very iffy. And when they kill off Thrawn, it's like, well, you gotta do the last command ending. You gotta have the artistically done moment. But with Martheon, I'm always like, Martheon is very, despite being alien, human in a sense that at the end of the day, he really is just a guy, a smart guy, a scary guy, a psychotic guy. But he is just a guy. He's got no force powers. He's got no. His abilities are his brain and his skills. But you don't need to like take away his force powers or anything like that. We got him, and you get eternal jail time. I guess the Republic doesn't have the death penalty at this moment. So I love his trial, by the way, where he just kind of looks at everybody's, pretty much gives the middle finger to everybody. And it's like, peace out on Marcion Rowe. He's so unrepentant. I love it. And yeah, you're right. I do kind of feel a little sad for him because he's just so diminished now. This big grand threat of the High Republic just now reduced to nothing and probably won't be remembered. I mean, maybe I'm sure. I mean, I kind of do wonder if Star Wars is a real fictional universe, how remembered is a Marcion Rowe? It's like, is he like one of the great threats of the galaxy? Or it's like, oh yeah, then there's like 4 years where this Marcion guy did some stuff. It wasn't great. But let's talk about Palpatine and his decades of tyranny and impact on the galaxy. But yeah, Dominic, I'll go to you. What do you think of Marcion's fate?
Yeah, I liked it. Like you pointed out, I found it refreshing that they took a different tact with it. I wanted them to see a villain get like a true redemption story where it's not they get redeemed and then they die like Vader and Ben Solo, but where they get redeemed and then they have to go about atoning for what they've done. And so I wanted that's something I want to see. And obviously this was not the story to do that. This was not, Markion's not the character to do that with, but this felt like putting a toe in the right direction by saying, oh, what if we didn't just like execute him? And like that doesn't necessarily fit with like the Republic's MO of what they try to project out there to the galaxy. As for what you guys are saying about like feeling a pang of sympathy for him, yeah, I felt that too. And I for as evil and terrible a human being as Markion is, solitary confinement, like not to get too real world about that, but that's cruel. It's a cruel and unusual punishment. We don't think about it that way enough. We've kind of become used to it as something that we do to people. But when you actually stop and think about it, it's actually like a pretty horrible thing. And like I'm not trying to defend people who have done terrible things. But I firmly believe that the way to handle people who've done terrible things is not to do terrible things to them back. Bring this all back to Star Wars. Solitary confinement's a terrible thing. It's an awful thing to do to somebody for 2 weeks, and they do it to him for decades. And so you wind up feeling, a pang of sympathy for him just because that's a and it is a cruel thing to do to somebody. And for as much as the Republic is trying to project this image of being better, and they don't execute him, they let him live. This is still a pretty. When you look under the hood, this is a pretty cruel fate for Marquion Ro. Nonetheless, I'm not saying he's not deserving of a cruel fate. He tried to kill everybody. He's a friggin' awful person who did evil things and hurt a lot of people, both directly and indirectly. And there should be a punishment for that. And so yeah, I like the way the book handled it. And as with everything in Star Wars, it's shades of gray. Like we think about it sometimes in terms of light, dark, black and white, but really there's a lot more to it. And so yeah, the High Republic did a good thing by not executing him, but what they did instead wasn't exactly awesome. So.
Agreed. I know, Dominic, you're gonna have to go soon, so I'll just ask. Any thoughts on like the kind of the teases, like your Staros, the Trade Federation, the rebuilding, anything near the end where it's kind of like setting up stuff and Jedi and all that?
The Avon Staros thing was kind of came out of nowhere. Because I was like, did I miss something at the end of Into the Light? I was like wondering if I missed something, and no, that's just something clearly a setup for a future story. Again, I think probably Justina Ireland will take care of that in a future book, and I look forward to it because Gira Staros is a character who gets off pretty scot-free in this. Like, she really did a lot of bad things and again hurt a lot of people more indirectly in her case, but that doesn't make it any better. And she kind of gets away with it. And I think a follow-up story to explore that and whether she did actually get away with it, I think would be really, really fascinating because the person who always challenged her the most was her daughter. And so when she next meets Avon, I don't think Avon will be as forgiving as the Republic. And the other big tease for me, we've already really talked about, was the Aslan wreath stuff. And I think that was
okay, fair.
really interesting, really good. So yeah,
fair enough. I'm expecting. See, that's another thing where I was like, someone's like, "Gira Staros, I'd like you to meet this Mune banker. His name is Hugo Damas. He's got." Hugo was like, "Well, your career was great interest."
So there was at the end of phase 1. At the end of it's the middle. It's the second YA novel. It's one of the Justina Ireland ones. It does kind of end and it alludes to that sort of bigger conspiracy of finance and the banks and all of that stuff and people profiteering off war and conflict and all this stuff and collusion and everything. I'm struggling to remember it specifically, which is why I'm kind of talking about it very vaguely. But it suggests that, it hinted that, and I was a little bit surprised that didn't come back more into play. But maybe that's just again something left for down the line. And yeah, Gira Staros meeting Hugo Damas, that might be pretty interesting. How long do Munes live for?
They can live for a couple 100 years. So
100 years, okay. Because like Acolyte is 150 years out from Phantom Menace, right? Is that
100?
100.
More or less.
Okay.
Like it's the midpoint between High Republic and Phantom Menace.
Okay, so if that's Plagueis in like middle age, he's like an old man. If we go by the Legends continuity, if he's like an old man when Palpatine kills him during Phantom Menace, then he's sort of middle aged in Acolyte. Yeah, we could have like the young, cool, hip Hugo Damas in a High Republic phase more story. That would honestly, that would be so fun. Bring it on.
Like just during his rebel cis years when Tenebra's like, yeah, that kid did.
It's like those like young like finance bros,
Oh my gosh.
Looking for a man in finance. Press fund.
The Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah.
Yes.
Munilist style.
Yeah.
The Wolf of Munilist.
There you go.
Or whatever planet that is. Where he's from.
Yeah. I know I'm running out of time, so I'll just ask.
Wolf of Megiddo. Sorry.
Maybe just your final thoughts on the book. I have some questions. I still got to ask Matthew one big thing. I think you know what it is, Matthew. But final thoughts on like the book and maybe just how you think the Jedi. I mean, we know obviously what's going to happen to the Jedi, but like how this will affect the Jedi moving forward, because that's sort of the last big moment of Yoda just kind of thinking, one we have had, but change we will.
Yeah, it's clear that this event, the Nile crisis, like shook the Jedi to their core. It's clear that it caused them to, take steps that they weren't planning on, that they didn't think they would have to take. They were doing a lot of things that were sort of like contingency plans. And because they've done that, once you open Pandora's box, it's really hard to close it back up. It's hard to put the toothpaste back in the tube, right? Like it's these things are out there. The Jedi Order is changed by this event fundamentally. Whether it's evident right away or not, it's not exactly clear. But even if we just look ahead to the time of the Acolyte, Vernestra all obsessed with political enemies and things like that. And like the Jedi have sort of begun this kind of downward spiral that ultimately takes them to where they are in Phantom Menace. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. That's kind of, I think, what happened here, where they, took steps that seemed and were reasonable in the moment, but wound up, changing who they were and who they are. So, yeah, loved it.
Indeed. Okay. Do you want anything to say? Anything else? I don't want to just have you go when I talk to ask you about the one question.
Yeah, I love the book. I thought it was sort of the perfect ending to the High Republic. Star Wars is usually pretty good at nailing its endings. Look at Andor. Look at like Bad Batch, The Clone Wars, Rebels. A lot of these shows really did nail their endings. We can think of some examples of things that didn't necessarily nail their endings, but those all did. Obi-Wan Kenobi, I think, frankly, nailed its ending.
Oh, I love Kenobi.
And this, I think, belongs in that pantheon of stories that nailed the ending. There's speed bumps and speed wobbles and stuff along the way, but ultimately, the story sustained and it was great, and it's a worthwhile journey to go on. And I hope I'm fully planned in a few years. Like I say, in a few years, I'd like to revisit it all and sort of reread it all in like the span of like 6 months, when it can all be really condensed and really sort of go like one into the next, and enjoy it that way, because it really did work, and I'd love to sort of experience it again. But it's fresh right now. I got to leave it some space to breathe. Got to focus on some other stories, and then return to it in due course. But yeah, the book's a solid 9.5 out of 10.
Epic.
And the series as well, as the High Republic's probably a 9 out of 10, or maybe an 8.5.
Oh, and
a little harsher.
Yes. Before you go, any plugs before?
Yes. Check out the Star Wars Underworld podcast live every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. We have a great conversation about all things Star Wars, and then you can find it on your favorite podcatchers pretty much immediately following. It's there by Friday morning. And if you want to read what I'm thinking about in Star Wars, you can check out my Substack, DominicGJones.substack.com. It's also called Hoth Off the Press. You get 2 posts a week. One is free. One is sometimes you have to pay for, but not always. And if you want to pay for it because you like it, please do. Please support over there. But again, DominicGJones.substack.com.
Awesome. Thank you,
Fun
Dominic, for
times.
joining us. Me,
for
Matt,
having me,
probably
guys.
gonna wrap up, but thank you. Bye
Yeah.
bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Yep.
All right. Okay, so
Mhm.
we're gonna wrap up soon, but I do have a couple things I want to talk to you, Matthew, about.
Yeah. And I want to talk a little bit about just the last
Oh yeah.
thing overall. But anyway, keep going.
But let's, because we talked about it and we went back and forth, but now we have the answer. The
Mhm.
Guardian protocols were rescinded.
Yeah.
Like I spent that entire book like waiting for that answer. Like I gotta know,
Yeah.
do they answer it? Am I finally gonna get? Are we gonna have a answer from Matthew? Like, yes, they were rescinded. Start there. What do you think of that? And then we can talk about the rest of the ending.
It's a little anticlimactic, a little bit, and it helps. Well, I'll say this. So the reason I wondered if they just kept the whole protocols is as a way of saying that the Jedi had changed, or that were going to bunker down and become more militarized, and just even question their allegiance to the Republic and different things. But the fact that they're lifted we get that message, we get that note in the point where Yoda's reflecting on how the Jedi have changed and the fact that they don't need them, they don't need protocols because that's already the culture to just be be on this almost war footing, if you will, saying we're there. I mean, this is kind of when they become the policemen of the galaxy, right? The kind of the George, or that's not the George Lucas thing. They're the mob bosses, but the policemen of the galaxy.
Policemen of the galaxy.
Yeah, that too. Okay. But that it becomes the culture shift of we're the hope for the galaxy to keep it safe, to keep it protected, with peace and security. And so that, I mean, we can be more sympathetic to them. But yeah, it's interesting then to see. Now I want a moment to say, okay, is there some point during the Clone Wars or whenever where they reinstitute them, if that's the Silver type of thing? So yeah, that was my response there. That
I swear, I feel like Delilah S. Dawson does something that's Guardian Protocol. This was the Red Blade, because it's like all Padawans become knights. They get automatically promoted because of the war, something like that.
That kind of thing. I mean, Ahsoka gets rushed in, similar kind of thing. So
that's true.
Yeah.
But no, I would keep my eye on it. I agree, and it reminds me of always kind of what Legends did, almost in a meta way, where my buddy Red Leader would always tell me, one of the reasons why the Jedi are portrayed very differently from an in-universe perspective, not the outer-universe perspective of, that was the 90s and the early 2000s, so we didn't know at the time, it is, every time the Jedi would have a crisis, be it, oh no, a Sith Empire, oh no, Darth Revan's Sixth Empire, oh no, this Sith Empire, lots of Sith Empires, is, every time the Jedi would take a beating, they would get back up and change to prevent whatever beat them the last time. So they're always kind of prepared for the last war, but never the next one. So when Darth Bane, not Darth Bane, when the Empire that Darth Bane destroyed was defeated, the Jedi changed. So it's like, okay, we're going to change to make sure that another Sith Empire like that never rises again. So we're prepared for that. We're not prepared for the Sith to just be two of them hiding in the shadows. So, they prepare for the last war, not prepared for this one. So yeah, that makes total
sense. And their
sense.
preparation for the last war is what, again, reinstituting Guardian protocols or whatever, what leads them into the next war. And as Don mentioned, being in the wrong place at the wrong time for Order 66.
Pretty much. Speaking of which, what did you think? I really did like the ending, and I liked, we get the mention of the Trade Federation, which sounds like they're a new group that's going to be very much influential in rebuilding the planet of the collusion zone. Gira Staros. I mentioned how Marcion is the villain of the last villain of this era. Gira Staros and the corporations are very much like going to be the villains of the new era. Like the overt warlord with his bombast and hairy chests. Or it's like that era is kind of over now. And now the new villains of this world are corporate, sleazy, shadowy people who don't look very scary, but really are. And I thought that they were the transition as well in evil, where it's like, okay, it's no longer these big bombastic tattooed looking guys. It's mega corporations and people inside the institutions and people doing things legally. Maybe make it legal. So I got a lot of that out of it. But yeah, what did you make of kind of a lot of the last few chapters? Very much like, here's how the implications, how this is how it's gonna all lead to Phantom Menace eventually in 200 years.
So I think the real achievement there is that it seemed so obvious, that it seems to flow so naturally from where we know it's going in 200 years, but also from what we've seen for the last 4, right? Just the last whatever in universe time. All these characters, all this political dynamics, seeing, okay, this whole swath of Outer Rim having being apart from the Republic based on this movement of these pirates who happen to think, oh yeah, the Republic ain't so great. We're not all the Republic, and so it definitely already telegraphed all that, but not telegraphed. It foreshadowed all that a lot, but to see it then play out and be explicit and say, okay, now the Trade Federation, they're gonna build up their cred, their sense
The
of
little credits.
the literal cred, but also the sense of, oh yeah, these corporations have come to save us from save us where the Republic couldn't, and that's gonna really drive that wedge that, of course, ends up splitting the galaxy. What I'm found so fascinating with Lena So's whole reflection there then is the thing is that the hegemony is broken, and it was a benevolent hegemony. She tried to say we're all the Republic, but now people are going to start to consider alternatives. They're going to consider alternatives of secession, of separatism, or like the Tarkins you mentioned before, of authoritarianism. And those are different. Those are two different alternatives. I mean, it's that question. I think that came up in the Mask of Fear. Is the Empire the successor state to the Republic, or is it a new thing? The answer is, of course, both. But we see here in this way, it's very clearly a different thing. It's an alternative, and Lena is being profoundly struck by the need to assert, no, this is what you all want. This is what you all want, which is itself a kind of authoritarian thing. So, yeah, definitely very, very smoothly brought in. It's like, oh yeah, we can see this coming. That's fine, makes sense. We get the mention of the Trade Federation in the Acolyte, right? That's there. So, yeah, that I think it's similar. Also, I know it's kind of shifting gears a little bit to the Jedi, right? The similar question I think Yoda's reflecting on, maybe in a different way, right? He's saying, we've changed, but in a way, we were able to ultimately save the day, but for a while we weren't. Are people going to also consider alternatives, including Lena So, right? Including this alternative saying,
what did she? Here's actually I have a question because I never understood this part. She's talking about creating something. What did she actually create? I'm not actually quite sure. It's not a navy, but
we don't quite know yet. But it's the next evolution from the RDC, right? Which it is awfully smooth and simple the way the Grand Army of the Republic is able to mobilize. Where do they get all these officers from, right? So I think what so interesting in the Rising Storm, there's the opposition senator Tia Toon. I remember this so clearly. It's one of those things that's just stuck in my brain. And he was positing this. He was saying, that Jedi are great. We trust them. We love them. We believe in the Force, but local security needs to be able to handle its own business and knows their planets, knows their people better. And so here I think Ed Dahl was implying this, mentioning this too, that Lena has come over to that idea, and that it's pushed that the effect, of course, on the Jedi is, oh, are we the guardians of peace and justice in the galaxy? Let's double down, right? When you're pressed by a crisis, you tend to also double down. That's the thing about preparing for the previous war, right? And say, yeah, we're the guardians of peace and justice in the galaxy. We're gonna go, and if we're gonna cooperate with the Republic to show the galaxy that we have this figured out, we have this in hand. Don't worry about this Nile crisis. Don't worry about what happened there. We got this. We got this figured out. We got this sorted out. So, yeah, it's oh, sorry. It really, again, it's so natural. It's so well built up. It's like they planned it from that meeting at Skywalker Ranch. It was like, let's plot this backwards.
I really want to know what that thing is, though, because
yeah,
is it something that we know exists right now? Because in the prequels, it's like the Republic is.
I mean, Corsac
military, maybe
that kind of thing.
Maybe it doesn't.
No, I don't. I don't think so.
Judicial
Like,
department? Is it the judicial?
yeah, I guess those kinds of things, right? I mean, we'll probably find out it soon enough.
I hope so.
You know,
That's like that was the most curious thing for me. Like,
because
what is
I mean, the deeper theme, the deeper idea behind it is
Section
already
31?
there. Ah, Section 31.
I don't know. Give me that
Yes.
vibe.
Yeah.
But no, you're right. It's very very interesting. Again, a lot of stuff that I very much want to know about Phase more. Right? Like
Yeah.
kind of the long durée of the Phantom Menace, which I guess includes the Acolyte too.
Yeah.
Let me check that out.
And those two Acolyte tie-in novels. One of them I do got to read this year. Wayseeker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Agreed. I think we did it. I think we more or less covered it. I kind of got nothing to. You talk about Gear Star Wars, right?
Yeah, I talk about Kira.
You don't think Avon's really gone? Is she just
No.
Okay,
No,
go either.
that would be weird. That would get too out of left field. That is definitely a setup. I mean, I think she's like Gira herself says, she's so good at hiding. She changed her name to Sunveil. I think she's trying to. She knows Gira's gonna get off scot free, and so she's like, "No, I want nothing to do with you, Mom." Which is also tragic, but especially if she's going to be in bed with the trade corporations here, the corporations. I don't know if Avon's going to be happy about that either. She might be, we didn't get anything from, Yarrow, Soule Yarrow, and Jordana Sparkburn and the Binding Guild. Interesting lack of much in the way of Santecas or graphs in this. But I mean, well, there was the influence of Vernestra. So Mari Santeca giving the path through the veil to Vernestra, who then gives it to the Nine. So there's that.
Yeah.
Couldn't include everything. The one last thing I wanted to say, this is interesting about the way this book ends.
Yeah.
I was like, I finished part 4, and in part 4 it ends with Elzar and the Shrieker just disappearing. I'm like, oh, this is the end. This is all there is. Like, we gotta see Avar and Elzar doing the thing, otherwise the story's kind of dropped, and it's just already the closing action, if you will. But so I'm wondering also if there was a version of the draft where that is the end of part 4. Where will be that chapter with Avar and Elzar. I love that, but then we get it, and like, oh no, he's going to put it in part 5 somewhere. Love that he pushes it further ahead in the midst of all these reflections on the future of the galaxy. You have this present tense chapter with Avar and Elzar and reflecting on everything. It's almost this, they're locked in time. So the galaxy is going to move forward, and they're locked in time, and so. I mean, Elzar's shadow could speak to Luke through some rocks, but yeah,
good stuff.
Yeah, it was again, it just speaks to really well paced, really well structured, but also the way, again, in the midst of all this large scale galactic history, reflecting on it, the lesson from Light of the Jedi, right? We still have these two characters we're invested in, and also with Lena and Gira, characters we're invested in. So that there, and then I wanted to say, yeah, Gira, this is the novel I want by Justine Ireland. So
I thought she retired from Star Wars books, unfortunately.
Oh, maybe, or somebody, yeah. Gira and meets Hugo Damask. Aslan meets Darth Plagueis, and that's
Charles Soule.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or Alexander Free can do the political stuff.
Or James Lucino.
Yeah, get him out of retirement, please.
Yeah. But yeah, like Gira meets Hugo Damask. Aslan Rel meets Darth Plagueis.
I'd be down for that.
Come together somehow. And that, yeah, just the way that novel sets up so much of the Separatists, and I think this could really set that up. I mean, yeah. trying to think of the timeline. Like when it could be like 30 years later. Doesn't have to be immediately after, but
We got
Yeah.
we got 200 years before the Republic goes to
yeah. Of
heck
course,
in a handbasket.
Gear is a human, so
Yeah,
yeah.
and Adam's
We
a human
do-
too.
although the dark side is prolonging his life. One thing we do know with the Staroses
Mhm.
is that at some point Avon, I mean, we know Avon's still alive. There's a whole comic book that has her as an adult researching kyber crystals by Justina Ireland. So the Santa Staros comic looks back in time. So yes, we know Avon's still alive.
That's true.
And has recovered her name, Staros. So
There's a story there. There's a story there.
for sure.
But no, I totally agree. I want that reconstructed story. But
Mhm.
I think we did it. I think we did it. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh.
Yeah.
What a journey. What a
Yeah.
High Republic journey. You read more of it than I did, even so.
Sure.
But I'm quite impressed. Again, this probably the most bold initiative they've ever done since New Jedi Order all those years ago.
Come on, it's bigger than New Jedi Order.
Well, New Jedi Order was 19 books. That's pretty
19 adult novels. This was what 8 adult novels. How many young adult novels, young reader comics,
big. Comics
all these different genres,
and TV series.
the TV series, into the video game, into Jedi Survivor, and
Young Jedi Knights.
young Jedi Adventures, and all this. It's the biggest thing they've done in all of publishing. Period.
Oh yeah.
So-
And I'm curious to see what Phase More looks like whenever
Yep.
they get around to doing that. That's what that will look like.
Maybe San Diego. Maybe they'll let us know.
Maybe. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining us. Dominic is gone, but thank you out again if you're listening to the rest of it. Yeah, we did it, Matthew. I can't believe it. I'm kind of shell shocked a little bit.
Yeah, no, it was good. I mean, kind of doing our character focused way through. So you have the last thoughts on what do you think of the book?
Oh yeah, I should get my last thoughts. Oh yeah, I'm quite impressed. I am as someone who always had trouble with a little bit of various High Republic books, because there's so much, and I'm not going to keep up with all of it. I was surprised how much I was able to follow. I was glad I was able to follow most of it. Again, glad I read the young adult novels at least, and the adult novels. I think those are kind of the two you need to read to understand the good gist of what's going on. I thought it was well paced. The pacing was quite good. Even on Audible, I felt it was well paced. I got through chapters pretty quick.
Yes. Yeah.
And again, I love the weird Force thing, and I love Marcion's fate. I feel sad, but I'm glad. I'm kind of glad he's got to live and die. Just of old age. 'Cause I thought that was really fascinating. So this is very much the end of the beginning.
Yeah, they did it again. They did it. They really did it. Again, HRA 19 and 20, and then the finale. 3 comic books, 2 of which are on my tablet.
Do you think that's when Keith Trent's going to leave the Order? You think she'll do it there?
I think that's Phase More. Now I'm thinking about that.
That's
I think that's Phase More, because it's just in a comic book, one shot, and she's not the only character. So
I'm sorry. I don't want to prolong this too long, but I'll just ask: do you think maybe when that happens, it'll be like a big time jump? It's like older Keith, like Keith actually stay for like a couple more decades before it's like I gotta leave. Her age.
Yeah, they have to make it convincing, because in the audio drama really starts to really get more disillusioned. Because when they aren't willing to go out after Skier, it's in response to this change that Yoda's talking about. So for it to take root, for it to take action, she is a human, so she can only live so long. Yeah, I don't know. I'd say
5 years.
Yeah, I think I want to say not that big of a jump, maybe 10 years.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But dealing with all the there's suffering. I mean, everyone has PTSD. The whole order has and that's what Yoda was saying. The whole order has PTSD at this
This
point.
is, I mean,
You know,
I'm gonna say it. This is the Jedi's 9/11 and or COVID kind of all in one.
yeah,
I mean, it really is. It's their 9/11.
Yeah.
It's their COVID. It's their Borg attack. And this is gonna
Mhm.
all
Yeah.
affect them for decades to come, centuries.
yeah. So I'm glad we are getting phase more.
Me too.
Yeah. It's like I feel like there's more to read. Like again, the two Acolyte novels. Chris Abbott was saying the Wayseeker does feel like an epilogue. So yeah,
That's good.
it's more to go, but the story itself done.
The Marcion
But no,
saga, I call it.
Yeah, the Nile saga. There you go. All right, yeah, like you said, we did it. We did it.
Well,
Way to go. We're gonna have to think about what I'm gonna say on lore, the High Republic, and the whole Canada, the Galaxy Far Far Away. I've started to think about that.
as long as there's more High Republic, we will cover it.
Yeah, so for sure. But in our intro and all that, our tagline. Think about that. But on the other end, until then, yes, thanks everyone for joining us in the comments, for watching on YouTube and Facebook and Twitch, for listening. If you listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your audio podcasts, please do let us know what you thought of conversation tonight. We thought of Superman and Star Wars and those connections, and of course of Trials of the Jedi and the High Republic overall. Please do comment below and give this video a like and a share, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Joel, where can they find you on the internet?
You can find me at JID20234 on Blue Sky. JID20234 on Blue Sky. Thank you, Daisy. It's been fun as well. I hope your seminar went well. Of course, you can find me on the Star Wars Underworld Discord server, where I do game nights, movie nights, and all sorts of fun stuff. Talk about Superman, High Republic, all that fun stuff. Let us know there as well what you thought about High Republic and Superman.
Yes. Yeah, you can find me Instagram, Threads, and Twitter, and not Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at MNAUG1138. Also Instagram, beaches.foodie, FOODIE, and on Twitter, NAUG485, and of course on the Tractor Beam, as mentioned, 2 more High Republic comics to go. 3 more to go. 2 more on Wednesday. 19 came out a few weeks ago, but I hadn't finished Trials of the Jedi, so I waited. So yeah, 19 and 20 of 20, and then of course Hyperspace Stories, Bad Batch, Ghost Agents, number 5 of 5. Check that out, and of course ongoing number 3 of Who Knows How Much, and yeah, a bit of a San Diego preview. Jam-packed show. Chris and I will do that because I will be, of course, taking a break from podcasting because I'm not going to take a break. I'm going to be doing lots of fun fandom nerdy stuff in this thing called San Diego Comic-Con. So check this last Tractor Beam before I fly off to their country, their state that Joel is in, Gavin Newsom land. So yeah, check that out this Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, right here on Underworld YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. There we go. Yeah, next week. I want to say next week. Yeah,
Next week, I am working on it. I am not 100% sure if I can get a guest. It's possible we might move that guest to the week after. I'm not sure.
Yep.
So you guys are kind of in a mystery of whether or not it's next week or the week after or none at all. It depends on if I hear back.
Yes, because I'll be off the next 2 weeks. Next Monday, I'm training down from LA to San Diego, and then the Monday after that, I'm flying from San Diego back here to Toronto. So, yeah, my plane lands just about when we're supposed to podcast. So yeah, definitely we'll let you know especially on Blue Sky and Discord. Keep your eyes locked on there. Joel, this was a great conversation of a great novel. Thanks for leading us through. Let's blow this thing and head home.
For light and life.